So today's lesson is on 9.2, which is solving quadratics by square roots. The number of solutions we learned yesterday of a quadratic function are you could have 2 solutions, 1 solution, or 0 solutions. And today we're going to be dealing with situations where we have an x squared and maybe a constant, but we don't have the linear term. So normally we have it's ax squared plus bx plus c. So today we're going to be dealing with situations where we don't have that middle term. So when we do that, we end up with x squared equals, and then there's a number here. And so depending on what that number is, we will end up with 2 solutions, 1 solution, or 0 solutions. So when we end up with x squared equals a positive number, then we end up with 2 solutions. When x squared equals 0, we will end up with 1 solution. And when x squared equals a negative number, then it will end up being no solutions because you cannot take the square root of a negative and get a real number. So for example, if I said that x squared equals 16, when I square root that, because I don't know what x was, then it could have been positive 4 or it could have been negative 4, because if you square each of these, you end up back at 16. So that's why we end up with 1, 2 solutions when it equals a positive number. We're going to do 4 different examples that are just basic calculations, and then we're going to do a real-life context problem. So the first one that we're going to do is 3x squared minus 27 equals 0. So first I want to see, okay, I have no middle term, so I can actually just go ahead and solve from here. So I just add 27, and we get 3x squared equals 27, divide by 3, and I get x squared equals 9. Well, square root cancels that out, and then we're left with x is 3 and x is negative 3. So those are my 2 solutions. I could have also stopped and known from here, because it's a positive 9, that I would have ended up with 2 solutions. So our second one, we're going to do x squared minus 10 equals negative 10. So if I add 10 to both sides to isolate x, then I get that x squared equals 0. So right off the bat, I know I'm going to have 1 solution. Okay? Because when I square root both sides, there is no plus and minus 0, so we just say 0. And there's only 1 solution. Our third example is if we have negative 5x squared plus 11 equals 16. So we want to isolate the x squared. So we subtract 11. And we get negative 5x squared equals 5. Divide by negative 5. And we get that x squared equals negative 1. Well, I cannot square root a negative 1, so I say no solutions. I cannot make that decision until I've isolated the x squared, though. So an x squared needs to equal a negative number before I can decide that there's no solutions. All right, so let's do one more problem. We'll do 4 times x minus 3 squared equals 9. So this one looks slightly different because we have parentheses around an expression. So the whole side is being affected by this 4. So if we divide by 4, those cancel, and this x minus 3 stays the same. I do not distribute this in because it's canceled out. And then this doesn't reduce, so I just leave it as 9 over 4. The other thing that's affecting the whole side is that exponent. So if I square root both of sides, then that exponent disappears and I'm left with x minus 3. Oh wait, we need to have positive and negative. So x minus 3 equals the square root of this would be 3 halves, both positive and negative. So positive 3 halves, and then x minus 3 equals, negative 3 halves. And then I want to add 3 to both sides. So this one, now if I want to actually add and I have one that's a fraction, I need a common denominator. So let's make that 6 over 2 because that's equivalent to 3. And then I can add and I get 9 over 2, which we can also say is 4.5, right? And then over here we're going to do the same thing. So negative 3 over 2 plus 6 over 2, that's positive 3 over 2, which is the same as 1.5. So those are my two solutions. All right, we're going to do one more problem, and this is a word problem. So we have a touch tank. That's like when you go to the aquarium and you get to touch the animals inside this tank right here. And the height is 3 feet. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a picture on my own paper that you should draw as best I can. And we're going to label it the height is 3 feet equals h. And we know the length is 3 times the width. So if the width is w, the length is 3w. And we can also come over here and say that the length is 3w. We also know the volume of the tank is 270. So volume is 270 feet cubed. Find the length and the width. So in order to find the volume, then I need to know that volume is length times width times height, because I have 1, 2, 3 dimensions that I have to multiply. And so I know that the volume is 270. The length we said was 3w. W is just w. And I also know that my height is 3 feet. And now I can multiply. So 3 times 3 is 9, and w times w is w squared. And then solve. So we get 9, and so we get 30 is w squared. I will get 2 answers. However, can I have a negative length? No. So my width is going to be the square root of 30. So width is square root of 30 feet. Now, just so that you can kind of imagine what that is, square root of 30 is between 5 and 6, because this is the square root of 25 and this is the square root of 36, and 30 is between both of those. So maybe it's around 5.5. Now, that's the width. We need to also find the length. They told us that the length is 3 times w, so 3 times square root 30. Since the 30 is inside the radical and the 3 is not, we simply write it as 3 square root 30. And then this is also in feet. That's it for today. Let me know if you have any questions about how to get this started in